Welcome to our video lesson on subtracting mixed numbers. This is just like the adding mixed numbers method, where there's actually two different methods you could choose from. I need you to write down the steps for both. However, on quizzes and tests and your homework, I don't mind which one you want to use. Whichever one you like better is the one that you can use. That's why I'm showing you both. So right now, please pause the video and record your steps. When you're ready, click play, and we'll start with the first example. Alright, in this example, we're going to use method 1. Before we start, we need to read the problem. You grow plants for a science project. One plant is 11 5/8 inches tall. Another plant is 7 3/4 inches tall. Find the difference in the heights of the plants. Okay, before we start this problem, you know we need to cube it. So we're going to circle the numbers and units. When I say units, I mean what it's measured in. So you should have 11 5/8 inches tall and 7 3/4 inches tall. Then we underline important math words. So difference is definitely an important math word. It tells us what operation we're going to use. B is box the question. So our actual question is this: find the difference in the heights of the plants. Even though it doesn't end in a question mark, I know that's what's telling me I need to do. And then E, eliminate unimportant information. Unimportant information, you could cross this out. It doesn't really matter that you're doing it for a science project. Okay, now we're ready to start. First, I'm going to start by writing our problem. Our problem is 11 5/8 minus 7 3/4. So 3. Okay, now we're going to use method 1. Step 1 in method 1 is to rename your fraction in if needed. Well, in this situation, we actually don't need to do that, and it's okay if you don't understand what that means just quite yet. Step 2, find our LCD. Okay, so let's look at our denominators here. We've got 8 and we have 4. So we need our lowest common denominator of these two. Start by writing the multiples of 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. And let's stop there. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And ding, 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 we can stop because we have found our LCD. 8. If you can do that part in your head, that's no problem. Go ahead and do it in your head. Now we need to do step 3. Rewrite the fractions using our LCD. Okay, so we're looking at 5/8 minus 3/4. Well, 5/8 is already written with our lowest common denominator, so we can leave it the way it was, as 5/8. And now we need to look at 3/4. What do you do to 4 to make it into 8? Well, to go from 4 to 8, we're going to multiply by 2. So whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do the same thing to our numerator. So I have 3 times 2, and that gives 6. So I have 5/8 minus 6/8. Ooh. Okay, does anybody see something wrong with this picture? Hopefully some alarms are going off in your head. Hopefully you see the problem is that 5 is bigger than 6, and we can't do 5 minus 6. Okay, this is a common problem you might run into with subtraction and fractions. We can't actually subtract these two fractions because 5 is smaller than 6. So what we're going to do is borrow. Now you may be wondering where we're going to borrow from. We're going to borrow from our whole number back at the beginning. If we're borrowing 1 from this 11, instead of having 11, we're going to have 10. Okay, if I'm borrowing 1 away from my 11 and I have 10, where do I put that extra 1? Well, I need it in here in my numerator. How do I add 1 whole to 5/8? Think about it for a little bit. What we know about this denominator is it means out of 8. And to get 1 in 8ths, we'd have to have 8/8. That's equal to 1 whole. So in order to add our borrowed 1 from our 11 into our fraction down here, we need to add 8 to 5. So we'd actually end up with 13/8. Now pause and think about that for a little bit and make sure you understand. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll come help you. All we did, just a quick recap, is we took 1 away from our 11 here and added it in a group of 8 because 8 eighths makes 1 whole, and we had 1 from the 11 and added it to our 5 to get 13 because 8 plus 5 equals 13. Well, now I know how to subtract this. So I have 13 eighths minus 6 eighths. And I know that that would give us 7 eighths. Now we've subtracted our fractions. We're on step 5. Step 5 is to subtract our whole numbers. We go back up to the top, and our whole numbers are now 10 and 7. Be careful you don't use 11, because it's no longer 11 because we put that 1 in with the 5. So we have 10 minus 7, and that gives us 3. So the difference between the heights is 3 and 7 eighths inches. I did this step in my head. We can't simplify 3 and 7 eighths, so we know we're done. Okay, that's just method 1. Now we're going to go on to, here, it's 3 and 7 over 8. There we go. Now we're going to do method 2. Method 2 might be a little bit easier for you to use because we don't need to worry about the borrowing in the same way. With method 2, step 1 is to convert into improper fractions. Okay, well first we need to even read our problem. 1 lion cub weighs 7 1/8 pounds. Another cub weighs 5 3/4 pounds. How much more does the heavier cub weigh? Okay, because it's a word problem, we need to cube. So you're going to circle the numbers and units. And here's another set of numbers. Underline important math words. How much more? I think that's it. Box the question. Here's our question. How much more does the heavier cub weigh? And eliminate unimportant information. We don't have any unimportant information here, so we're not going to worry about that one. All right, now we're ready to start. I know that I'm going to take 7 1/8 and subtract 5 3/4. Okay, let's get started. We need to convert into improper fractions. And you know what? The great thing about converting into improper fractions is we don't need to worry about that borrowing thing that we did in the last problem. Because once it's an improper fraction, as long as our first fraction is larger with a larger mixed number out front, it's going to work out well, work out nicely. So, we need to convert to improper fractions. 7 times 8 is 56, plus 1 gives me 57. 57 eighths minus 5 times 4 is 20, plus 3. Ooh, 23 fourths. Okay, step 2, find our LCD. Well, we have actually 8 and 4 again. Well, the multiples of 8 are 8, 16. I'm going to stop there. Multiples of 4 are 4 times 1, 4, 4 times 2, 8, and ding, 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 we have our winner. The nice thing is we already have 57 eighths. With a denominator of 8s, we don't need to do anything to it. Then we have 23 fourths. What are we going to do to 4 to get 8? Well, 4 times 2 is 8, and we're going to do the same thing to the numerator. So we have 23 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. So now we have 46 eighths. So we have 57 minus 46. 7 minus 6 is 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. And now we have 11 eighths. Our next step is to convert our difference, our answer here, back into a mixed number. And I do that by dividing 11 by 8. 8 goes into 11 once. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtraction, get a remainder of 3. And how do we write this as a mixed fraction? Well, we know 8 goes into 11 one whole time, so that becomes our whole number. And then our denominator stays the same as 8, and what's left over down here goes here. Our last step is to simplify. 3 and 8 don't have any common factors, so I know I can't simplify it. So that means the heavier cup weighs 1 3/8 of a pound, or pounds, more. Here's a reason I really like method 2 in this situation. If we used method 1, because our fractions are 1/8 and 3/4, when we converted these into using our lowest common denominator, we would have 1/8 minus 6/4, and we would have had to do the borrowing, the carrying thing. If you don't feel comfortable with the carrying, just use method 2, because in method 2 you don't need to worry about the carrying at all. If you feel comfortable with the carrying and prefer it, feel free to do it that way. Okay, there's one last thing I need to show you. The last thing is how to subtract mixed numbers when you have a whole number. Think back to the bell work where we talked about the different ways that you can write whole numbers as fractions. So we look at this problem, we have 7 minus 2 and 5/8. Unfortunately, we can't just subtract the whole numbers and say that it's 5 and 5/8. We can't do that because then we're not taking the 5/8 away from the 7. We're not taking that into account in our problem. So we need to do something else. What we're going to do is rewrite our 7 into improper fraction. So the different options we could use. Think about our bell work. We said we could use 7/1. And then to make our lives easier though, we want to write 7 as a fraction with the denominator of 8. Why would I do that? Why would I want a denominator of 8? Hopefully you can think about our steps and how you need to find the lowest common denominator. So you can actually get rid of that whole step by initially writing 7 as a fraction with a denominator of 8. Okay, we have 7 wholes, 7/1. How would I write that with a denominator of 8? Well, what do I do to get from 1 to 8? I multiply it by 8. So what would I do to 7? Whatever I do to the denominators, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. 7 times 8 is 56. So I could rewrite this problem here as 56/8 minus 2 and 5/8. When you see a whole number out front, try and rewrite it using your denominator, whatever the denominator is here. If you find that really, really confusing, you could just write it with a denominator of 1, and then later on in your problem, convert it over. I'm not going to solve this problem here for you. My challenge for you is to choose which method you prefer and try solving it on your own. Press pause in the video, and then when you've got your answer, press play to find out if you got it right. So pause the video now. Alright, now that you've tried it, hopefully you got the answer of 4 3/8. If you got that answer, awesome, you got it correct. If you didn't, try and look back and see where you made your mistake. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.